Welcome to the Wild Wisdom Podcast, where we learn how to heal our hearts, find our voices, and step into our authentic power as the wild women that we were destined to be. I'm your host, Jessica Love. Settle into whichever way you like to listen to the Wild Wisdom Podcast, and let's get started. Today, I'm here with Raychel Hollingsworth. She is a certified trauma-informed life coach who helps people defy the impossible to create a life they truly love. Hi, Raychel.
Hi, so great to talk to you.
I'm so glad that you're here. And you must have known through the grapevine that we're astrology girlies here.
Love my astrology girlies. Yes, yes.
I usually ask people what their big three are. And I love that Raychel actually put that in our notes to schedule the podcast. And so she shared with me that you shared with me that you're Pisces Sun, Libra, Rising, Cancer, Moon. I'm curious. So that would mean that this most recent full moon in Scorpio was transiting your second house, most likely. And that resembles resources, livelihood, and social roles. So I'm curious, what was that like for you?
Oh, wow. It's so wild that you say that. I am literally in the process of moving my life. So I live in Brooklyn, New York right now, and my partner and I have recently decided that we're going to move abroad. And so when we think about things like resources, livelihood, like there's a lot of things that are shifting and in motion. And, I shared a little bit about this in my email, but this last year has been a huge one of massive transition for me. And that I went from a very kind of structured masculine corporate life to making space for divine timing and intervention, making space for universal flow, leaning more into my femininity. And so all of this, if it were a year and plus ago, I would have had spreadsheets upon spreadsheets and a 5-year plan to make this happen. The move to Peru and the gradual move that we're making to Peru has literally been birthed over the last 35 days. So lots of really big changes. Yes, the fact that it's in my second house is it blows me away, but also this stuff is never coincidental,
I'm so grateful today that our guest Raychel so graciously shared some of her personal astrology with me. And I was able to see where this most recent full moon was transiting in her specific chart. As you saw during our conversation, it was a really cool way for us to connect. And it was also a cool opportunity for her to reflect on the patterns that have been going on in her life over the last 2 weeks. If you're curious in having a similar, more in-depth reading, or you want me to look at your chart and see what is transiting currently for you in your environment, aka what is happening beneath the surface that you might not be aware of, or what has been happening that you are ready to really bring your attention and your awareness to, you can book a birth chart reading with me or an astrocartography reading with me. You can go to the link in my show notes for both. Now let's get back to the show.
There's a reason why we believe in astrology. The stars have been around a lot longer than we have. So just observing their patterns feels like the right approach.
Totally. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I couldn't agree more. I always say that astrology doesn't tell you anything you don't know. It reminds you of what you've forgotten. And so I love how naturally aligned you are with your astrology to be able to have the courage and the bravery to do something different in this new beginning that you're planning loosely, but more likely living and embodying instead. Raychel, you mentioned that you've been going through a lot of shifts and you went from being more structured to a little bit more fluid and intuitive. Was there any was there a singular or a string of aha moments that created that shift for you?
Ooh, such a good question. So I would say that this has kind of been an evolution over many years. In that, I moved out when I was really young and really leaned heavily into a very structured way of thinking, feeling like I needed to climb corporate ladders in order to get as far away from a low income past as I possibly could. I also, and I want to tell you this because it just relates so deeply to your love of astrology and even, my deep connection with it. My dad was really into astrology growing up. And so I grew up with it. My sister is an astrologer. She can read the patterns. I for such a long time, I was like, nope, I'm not going to believe in that. And then she would do my charts and I would be like, yeah, when you see it personalized like that, you're like, this is not coincidental. This is not for just anyone. This is very specific. All the patterns continue to play out. But for such a long time, I felt like I had rejected all of these, like, more woo-woo sides of myself, like just feeling like, again, I needed to get far away from my past. And so the last like 2 decades has really been a continuous climb. And now the last 2, 3 years has been a continuous unraveling, where I realized that I had been burning out and then burning out and then burning out, living in the corporate world. And I would find that my solace would be in movement. I went to Thailand and I did a Muay Thai training camp. I went to India and I did a yoga teacher training, and I would just continue to travel to get far away. And I would find myself again and I'd be like, oh, I feel so good. Like, this is great. I love this. And then I would step back into the corporate world. And then just a few years later, I'd be like, hold on, I'm taking on too much. I'm taking on too much energy, And so it really took me some time to start to see myself more clearly and not see my desire for flow or for creativity as a fault, but instead as like a juicy, delicious, unique part of my personality that needed to be expressed. And it really wasn't until my first trip to Peru last year where I started to really start to see, like, oh gosh, like, I am a sunflower and I just keep exposing myself to these harsh temperatures, being like, survive, love this, and I don't. And so having that deep respect for myself blossom over the last, like, honestly, over the last 2 years has been hugely pivotal in me choosing to listen to myself in a more unapologetic way, no matter what that looks like, no matter who I disappoint along the way, and choose me over and over and over again.
Yes, sister. I love that for you. What a journey you've been on. When you were speaking, I thought of this concept of nature versus nurture. And I also saw this in your big three with your moon being in Cancer. When you're doing a lot of healing and you grew up in an environment that was tumultuous and challenging, it's easy to want to be the exact opposite of your ancestors, right? Because we remember and we've experienced trauma and pain from them. And so we want to be completely different. But how do I say this? Our ancestors bring us wounds and pain and trauma. And they also bring us gifts. Mm. And so I really feel like once you are at a certain point in your healing journey, then those gifts can start to come online. And I feel like that can be healing. Like when you were talking about your dad with astrology, there was this challenging environment where you grew up, and I'm sure that was a challenging relationship with him. Being away and being separated from that allowed you to do the healing work, to hold space for that pain, and then also for the gem of the wisdom that wants to come down your family line.
Yes.
Astrology.
Yes. Beautiful.
Yeah. So celebrating you for that opening, and also for the trust that you had in yourself to just follow that your body was wanting to move. And so you let her move. And then you reached a point where you said, wait, hold on. Like, I want to be with my heart right now. And I feel like you came to this point of realizing that you have so much to offer outside of that hustling. And when we go through these experiences in life that are so beautiful, we call them transpersonal experiences in psychosynthesis, which is what I use with my clients. When you come back to that life that you were in before, when it doesn't resonate, that can create something called a spiritual crisis, which is, those are the moments where we are, on the floor asking the universe for support, or accidents will start to kind of manifest in whatever environment. You start to get tension and friction with what was. And I think it's really brave of you to choose to create a new story with what you have learned and actually integrate the wisdom that you got through that travel and the new healing modalities you learned. Whether you do those things like every day now, maybe not, but you needed to at that time, I think, to reach the level of maybe self-assurance that you have right now. Would you say that?
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And look, like the healing journey is never linear. So I talk about the last few years because they've been so, so potent.
Yeah.
But, if I were to also zoom out and look at the last 10 years, my healing journey has been so profound. And there have been so many beautiful lessons. And it's a continuous return to the self and a continuous ability to see dark hidden corners of our inner world and embrace them more. So what you were saying about the family lineage, it's like you can't reject those parts of yourself and not also be rejecting parts of yourself. And so the more that I can heal from the things that I went through in my past and forgive and create a new relationship with those memories, the more that I can allow more of myself to come online and to be seen. And the more that I can realize like those unique parts of me. I mean, it's like you light up the kaleidoscope with those unique parts as more of you are, as you're willing to really step into that radiance. And so it's just been, it's been an absolutely wild journey where I am right now. My younger self would be like overjoyed. And I do it all for her. Even when I quit, my high paying corporate job, I had a picture of my younger self up because I was just like, just remember, like, you get to make decisions now that look out for her 100% of the time. And it's an honor. And I think for a really long time, I didn't know within my bones that it was an honor to take care of me. Because, as we talk about family lineage, like you grow up in this world and you see the world around you, and it teaches you, from a very young age, how you should feel about yourself or what's kind of like socially acceptable. And sometimes that mirror is a funhouse mirror, and you don't know until you start realizing, oh, this one's not so accurate. Okay, how can I learn to see myself more clearly and start inviting that to come forward? And I think the healing modalities that I sought out for the last 2 decades, honestly, a variety of different healing modalities have really taught me a lot about who I want to be, who I can be, and get me to see myself more clearly day in and day out, so I can see other people more clearly and do this job more effectively. And I call it a job, but that's really not how I feel about it. It's a privilege to get to work with people in this way, and in whatever way it is, to just be like a conduit for that kind of healing.
Yeah, totally. You really are, from the little I know of you so far, such a walking embodiment of the work that you do. And you share that you help people defy the impossible. And you told me that you left home at 15. So you moved out at 15 and became an adult at such a young age. What was that experience like for you? And how do you feel like it informed some of the bigger leaps you took? I mean, that's a pretty big leap, but how do you think it informed like that leap from corporate to healing work, or some of the other ones you've taken in your life?
Oh, I love this question. So look, like, I mean, no one wants a troubled childhood, right? And when you go through that, at least for me, I felt really alone. I was like living life as a teenager. I was trying to be normal, still trying to fit in, still trying to be cool and be pretty and be all the things that, teenage girls are really overly concerned about. And at the same time, like life was crumbling around me. Like every day was chaos. And it had been like that for a very long time since, since I was young enough to talk. And I think like because I grew up in that sort of environment, I was constantly on high alert, constantly trying to adjust myself to fit into a room so that way I didn't create more tension. I had learned to like feel into an environment before I could really be myself. And that was something that, again, like I didn't realize the power of my sensitivity because I felt like there was something wrong with me, that I was feeling so strongly. I would get so anxious when I was young. And so there were a lot of parts of myself where I had stripped away over time. I was like, nope, that's not okay. That's not okay. Like, let's just be normal. Let's be perfect. Let's do everything right. Teachers will never say anything but good things about me. And it was kind of like for a long time living a double life where I would come into school and I would be this like very dedicated, like kiss ass student because I really wanted my teachers to notice me. I really wanted to feel that sort of like attention that I wasn't getting at home. And then at home, it would be like utter chaos where I would just lock myself in my room and just be very emotional. And so I tell you all of this because, you know, when it came to finally moving out, there had been so much churn and it was so painful for so many years that it was still challenging to decide to choose myself and decide to move out. And yet there was a part of me that was just like, what else am I going to do? Like, I already know what it looks like to continue to choose this like very familiar toxicity. I don't know what it looks like over here, but I know at least then I'm with me and I find solace with me even when I'm in the chaos. Like I would lock myself in my room and listen to music and do what I needed to do. And so it was kind of a knowing where I was like, I can't let myself fail. I need to figure this out. And, you know, I feel like, you know, when you go through a lot of trauma at once, sometimes your brain doesn't like you can't collect all the pieces. I don't remember a lot of that time period with like in a way that is like super chronological movie montage style. But I do remember the hustle. I remember like snippets of that time period. And I remember like almost falling asleep in some classes and that sort of thing. And I think that because I didn't see it as courage to move out, I just saw it as something that I needed to do. My relationship with making hard decisions had already started to take shape, and I just didn't realize it. And I think that, you know, now that I look back, you know, and I've been doing this work and I've been, you know, a trauma-informed coach for many years now, and I've been on my own healing journey for way longer than that, I can see more clearly that the perspective that I had embraced about continuing to walk a path that, you know, was murky, had not yet been defined, it was really laying groundwork for other hard decisions that I would make later on. And it's not to say that when I finally left corporate, it was super easy, because as you can imagine, leaving at 15, like I had a bunch of financial wounds. I didn't have mommy and daddy looking out for me. You know, like I didn't have those types of things that I think a lot of people can attribute to their success. And so when I decided to leave corporate, I had a lot of like financial concerns, like worked so hard for this life. I had gotten so far away from the life that I had, you know, grown accustomed to growing up. And so, you know, I was kind of just like, am I going to be like this loser that falls on their face? Like, what is that going to look like for me? And, you know, all of the prestige, you know, all these like very egocentric things that you don't want to want, but you still do. You still develop an attachment to. So anyway, making my way back to your question, I feel like, yes, in some ways, making that hard decision when I was really young helped me to make other hard decisions. But new level, new devil, you know, like you step into this like a new set of challenges where you have traumas that you haven't worked through before, because you're just like regularly like picking up the next trauma, trying to figure out how to heal that. And so it definitely still gave me like a new flavor of challenge to step into this life.
Totally. Hearing your story is so inspiring. You have a lot of, I'd say you've been scrappy, like you've got some grit and some scrappiness in a good way. I feel as if, specifically as women, I think it's easy for those of us who have been through trauma, specifically childhood trauma, where you are raising yourself. I sympathize with 15-year-old you who was just looking for that fatherly or motherly love through her teachers. I resonate with that too. And then you went home and it's like chaos, right? But there was a drive, because when you were in school and you were doing well in school and your teachers saw that, you know, as children and teenagers, I mean, I feel like we're children until we're like 23 personally. Like anybody under like 22 is like a kid, because you look back on that time in your life and you're like, what? Like, that's when we really need, I think it's until 25 psychologically. I can't remember, but you really need parents. You really need these guides to usher you into the world. And when you don't have that, you look for it elsewhere. And so I really have a lot of compassion for young Raychel. And I can see where, as tough as it is to have lived in survival mode, I can also see where there were some fruits of success with that scrappiness and your ability to hold a successful business now and to also do the healing things you've done. I am curious if you could go back in time and maybe transport to a memory that you can remember that is neutral. So it doesn't necessarily bring up something really hard, like, it's a more neutral memory you feel safe exploring. And you were looking at that 15-year-old Raychel. Maybe she's in school and she's falling asleep on her desk with her favorite teacher, right? What would you say to her now where you are today?
I would say to her that she is so much more special than she can even comprehend, and that the things that she is learning in that moment about herself and about her scrappiness and about life will make an impact on the world, and she'll be able to use it. And that the fear and the hurt and the pain and the love, the abundance of love that she feels will not be contained anymore. So she will be able to be the waterfall that she is, rather than trying to continue to fit herself into a cup that is just far too small.
Your story is making me cry. I really hope that this supports someone, and I have chills. There has been so much synchronicity in my own experience with you, and I don't think I've ever experienced that before. So I'm really grateful to get to connect with you. And yeah, what I would say is having a similar experience growing up. I moved out at 17, going on 18, so I was a little bit later, but I felt like when I was 21, so after like similar childhood as you, I went through like 3 near-death experiences, and I went through my spiritual awakening. It started when I was like 19, going on 20, and I started my coaching practice at 21, going on 22. And I felt like the universe knew I was ready, even though I was young, because I had success from the beginning. And I was coaching people who were like in their 40s. Like that was who was feeling drawn to me at the same time as I'm still integrating. But I feel like when you go through those intense experiences so young, you do mature so much quicker. And I guess my prayer is for women who are going through that. If this somehow reaches, like, whoever's listening to this, if you know a younger woman that is going through this, like, please send that to her. Because I feel like, yeah, it's really imperative that we nurture teenage girls and girls in their own early 20s trying to figure it out. I feel like sometimes they get left out of the equation, and we end up rising into these role models for others and also for ourselves. And that can be beautiful and healing, and also sometimes create a void. And why I shared all that is because there were 2 times in my life where I felt like it was all worth it. And I was hearing you say this, like you realizing it was all worth it. And it was when I started coaching and I was working with somebody. I was working with somebody and I saw their experience. And I thought, wow, I'm so grateful I can hold space for this person right now because of what I've been through. That was worth it. And when I met my daughter, she was born when I found out I was pregnant, but really when she was born, and I realized, wow, okay, like everything was worth it. So yeah, I felt like I needed to share that.
So glad you did. I feel your energy, and it's so powerful. You have such a beautifully warm and soothing presence about you. And I do feel like there is this really lovely synchronicity going on here. And I mean, even just feeling it's palpable. It really, really, really is. I like the way that you are contributing your essence to the world around you. I can only say, like, I can feel it. And I'm sure that everybody who comes on your podcast can feel it as well. But it's really special. It really is something.
Thanks, love. I love that we're like feeling this part of us with each other, like I really love that we get to like mirror that warmth and that love that we deserve with each other right now. I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah. what you said about sending this to other women who might be going through this, especially young women, I think like it's so important, especially because I think when you are a teenage girl, a teenage woman, and you're growing up and you're kind of in this murky space where people start to see you as an adult, but you are still very much so a child, especially if you have not gotten the nurturing that you deserve at that age or before, it may be hard for you to receive it. And so the way that you show up might be a little bit more calloused, a little more rough around the edges, a little less receptive. And I think that especially at that age, we need to be reminded that we are not hard to love, and that other women especially are willing to look out for us and are willing to take the vulnerable leap and to put themselves outside of their comfort zone at the risk of maybe being rejected, knowing that a young person may not have the vocabulary or may not have the skills to be able to appreciate it or receive it properly, I put that in quotes, but they still deserve to feel it. And you don't know whose life you might change by just extending that kind of kindness their way. So anyone who's listening to this and anyone who feels, again, resonant with any of these themes, like, please take this as your reminder that like you having done any amount of healing work to be at this place is still a step ahead from someone who needs your light and needs you to help them see the path. So
it's that energy of paying it forward. Was there a woman or multiple women in your life at that time that did that for you?
Oh, I wish. I think for me, it was a lot of actually male teachers I had one particular male teacher who really looked out for me, who had gone through something similar, who helped me to like see my options in a clearer way. And I also did have a dance instructor from when I was really young who I absolutely looked up to. And she felt like a big sister to me. And even though, I wouldn't say she gave me like the warm and fuzzies in that way, she was the role model that I needed that really helped me to see like what can exist beyond these four walls. And again, like, every person that you come into contact with has the ability to change your perspective and to change you. And so I'm really, really grateful for all of that.
That is so beautiful. I'm so grateful you had that support. And I was thinking about in my late teens, I moved in with my aunts. They're married, and they invited me to live with them in this beautiful home that they have, so I could commute to school. And it's a long story, but I was going to either need to drop out or find a place to live, and I couldn't afford a place. And they were so fortunate, and they paid for my easy pass, which was so sweet to get to school. And I remember being like a little clammy. I don't think I was like mean or aggressive, but I definitely wasn't like super bubbly and joyous, let's put it that way, during my time there. But knowing that I was going to have a place that was safe to come back to every night, I mean, that was so healing. And we don't realize it in that moment because you're still processing all the chaos. And then in my early 20s, I feel like my father went through his own healing of some kind, and he was that person for me. And I also lived with him for a little while. And it was so healing to have just safety, where it was like this predictable environment and I could go home and it's like, however, these angels we have on our path, like they hold us in this beautiful experience that we don't even realize always at the time is framing our brain and the ways that we're wired. Well, I would love to pivot here for a moment, Raychel. So a big part of your work that you do, which I feel like was inspired from your journey, is you work as a certified trauma-informed life coach. I am curious, a lot of our audience are healers, life coaches, tarot readers, etc. Not all, but some, fitness coaches even. What are some of like the major differences, I guess, between like a trauma-informed certification and a non-trauma-informed certification? Or if there's maybe a specific practice or a tip that you would want to pass on. For example, I learned from a trauma-informed yoga teacher not to burn incense or anything with a smell when I teach yoga. And I had never heard of that because she said that she learned in her certification, certain scents can trigger traumatic responses. So I'm curious if you have any of those tips that you would be open to sharing with our audience.
Yeah, wow. I just learned something with you saying that. I had never known that before. So yeah, in terms of being trauma informed, first of all, if you are interested in being trauma informed, it's such an important space, in my opinion. Obviously, I care deeply about this space. But it's really about understanding the various shades of gray in between, like the overlap of psychology and coaching, and really helping you to more successfully navigate such that you can help someone move forward from the things that are holding them back. And people use this in a variety of different ways. Some people decide to actually pursue trauma work afterward, and some people continue just going down a typical coaching route. But for me, I really wanted to be able to look into someone's past and see how that past is showing up in their current day experience. And for so many of us, you build your mental map of the world when you're super young. Most of us don't revisit that map. And even if we do, maybe we revisit one or two limiting beliefs and don't realize, oh, just kidding. Like, we have thousands that are hidden in that closet, and they gradually start to expose themselves to us over time. But a lot of my work as a trauma informed coach is seeing where people are at, seeing what obstacles they're up against, and then being able to go and use introspection or use somatic work to help them re-engage with some of those core memories and to renegotiate the relationship that they have with their trauma, such that their trauma and the issue that they once kept as this like dark hidden shadow in like in the background that they didn't want to talk about becomes something that they can bring to light, that they can now see as something beautiful about themselves. And now they have this like best friendship with this memory because they now see how it carefully constructed the path that they're on right now, and allows them to be a more fulfilled, more empowered, deeply feeling person. And I know you asked the second part to that question. I kind of referenced this in terms of my response, but I would say being able to engage with the body. So a lot of my coaching sessions, I really, we'll talk, I'll have a conversation with my clients about what's going on, what's alive for them. And then we'll start to journey inward, and I'll take them into a meditation, and I really feel into like the intuitive space in between me and my client to kind of figure out like what feels really alive, what feels potent for them right now. And sometimes they tell me a specific body part, but usually I use it as an opportunity to explore what might be going on. Sometimes it's like the throat, the heart, the gut area are common places where people hold a lot of trauma. Mm-hmm. And we'll use that as an opportunity to, with their eyes closed, act like you're holding a lantern and staying compassionately curious with the parts of you that are trying to send signals and information to your brain. And when you do that, again, like it may sound wild to those who are not familiar with this practice, but your body stores so much information, and our brain is processing and pushing so much downward. And when we finally flip the switch and invite the body to instead be the deliverer of that information and allow the brain to be the receiver of those messages, there's so much we can learn that our body has been holding on to, that has been wanting to be seen this entire time. Like, it's the thing that we are afraid to look at that so desperately wants to be seen and so desperately wants to be released. But when we ignore it, we make it so much bigger. And so our body, it's got all these protective cavities to keep our brain like in la la land all day long. And then we end up with, chronic inflammation or IBS or, any number of health issues. And there really is a way to start inviting that information forward, so that way you have a more holistic, interconnected, collaborative relationship with your body and not feel at war with yourself anymore.
Wow. Mic drop. Have you read The Myth of Normal by Gabor Mate?
Oh, I love Gabor Mate, but I haven't read that actually. I'm gonna write this down afterward. We'll have to chat about this.
Yeah, totally. So in this book, he references some research he did with autoimmune conditions in women and how there's a direct correlation with the amount of autoimmune conditions in our society. I think it was the US and Canada. I can't remember if he researched other countries, but I want to say it was at least the US and Canada, is so directly correlated to the amount of trauma that a woman has and also her relationship to it and the healing work she's done on it. And how specifically female bodied people, but men have trauma too, and they hold on to it. But there's something about how the way that we hold it in our body specifically makes us like much more prone to autoimmune disease, and specifically around the way that we speak about it and how there's a suppression of emotions and there's a suppression of our voice in regards to how we're processing them, or if we even feel like we can. And the more it gets kind of trapped in the voice and also in the body, the more our body responds. Like you said, they're just, it's like, okay, I don't know what to do with this. So I love the examples you used of how it can manifest. I've also seen it manifest personally and in other people with excess weight sometimes, or like excess weight loss too. I've seen it manifest with acne and rosacea and hives. Can I tell you, this is like, there's a point in my healing journey where I was really doing the things. So I was doing the things you mentioned, thankfully. And I woke up one day, and the night before I had went to this like Hare Krishna meditation. I just wanted to try it out and I was invited. So I figured, why not? And I woke up the next morning and I was covered in hives head to toe. I'll have to show you a picture. It was nuts. I'm not allergic to anything that I knew of. And I took a Benadryl. So, I'm like, I don't know if this is okay. Like, I think I need to take this Benadryl. And nothing went away. And the next day went by and nothing went away. So I took it upon myself to go to a doctor. And a girlfriend at the time said, don't go to a doctor. This is definitely spiritual, but I didn't listen. And the doctor sent me to an allergist who said, your hives are so bad, girlfriend, that I can't even do allergy testing on you. Take this antihistamine every day for 3 months, and then we'll do allergy testing. And at that time, I was like, okay, I guess I knew that I could go holistic route, but I didn't really know. And I just was trying to get these hives off my body. So I was like, sure, give me the drugs. And I took them every day. And I went back to get allergy testing done. And all she said was I had a small amount of allergy to cats, which I already knew about, and dust. And she had no idea why I had hives the whole time. And I never had hives again, girl. I went off the medicine cold turkey and I never have ever had hives again. And so I really do agree with you in the sense of like, and I love that you do this work with your clients of not only processing neck up, but also processing neck down. And I think that's really powerful. I do want to create space for this before we wrap up our conversation to ask you about your journey with ayahuasca and how that's informed your practice. You shared with me that you have had some beautiful experiences sitting with grandmother. I think grandmother also weaves people together. So I'm grateful that she wove us together. How was your experience sitting with her? But I'm specifically curious about how sitting with her has changed your coaching practice, since we're on that topic right now.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. And this is actually the first time that I think I'm going public with my experiences with grandmother. So I'm so excited actually that it's going to be with you. I first sat with ayahuasca last year, and I went to a retreat and I sat with her 4 times in a 9-day period. And at the time I was going through so much. I had just moved to New York to chase my career in corporate. I knew my job was not where I wanted to be. My marriage had just felt like it was really in a sticky place. There were just so many elements, but I had done so much healing work. So I'm like, how could I possibly be here? Like you just assume that at some point you outgrow the downward spirals. And of course they do I would say the foundation gets lifted. I don't think I've ever been as low as I was when I was really young, but foundation gets lifted, but it was still a really hard point. I'd be curious to know what the astrology was at that point. I know my sister did a reading for me, but we'll revisit that later. And so I was like, okay, maybe I'm going to go on a meditation retreat. Maybe I'm going to go do yoga. And my partner had come out at the time and he was like, we've talked about going to sit with ayahuasca. Maybe we do that now. And that lit a spark in me. And for the next 12 hours, I was researching retreats. So I tell you all of this to know that it wasn't, it was kind of like both in the flick of an eye, flash of light sort of moment. And also it felt like it had been building for quite some time. And I was so ready. My first ceremony, I was like, tear me open, show me what you need to do. I got this. Don't you worry. Like Laura Croft sort of situation. I was like, oh, break me open. I'm ready for you. And I had been speaking with Madre before stepping into the Amazon jungle where I had done my retreat, just to start that relationship with her. And I had started feeling her energy and I'd started seeing her, which was really unexpected for me. Again, people tell you to talk to her. And I was like, well, I'm not sure how I feel about this. Cause at the time I was still like, what's woo woo? I don't know. I'm like, is this all right? Am I going to look like, the crazy lady dancing in the park, right. Sort of situation. So my first ceremony was actually so profoundly beautiful. I think she knew that what I really needed was tenderness. And it was just kind of like a continuous injection of love over and over and over again. And I had this moment where I was just like, okay, I didn't realize that I still was suffering from chronic depression and was just highly productive because she helped me to see oh, wow, okay, I actually am worthwhile. And again, these things that, I had known in my mind, but didn't feel fully until my experiences with ayahuasca. And I had, highs and lows, and even the lows with sitting with ayahuasca were still some of the most beautiful, profound experiences of my whole life. But in that first retreat, that was when it was revealed to me that my purpose on this planet is to be a conduit for love, and that all of the pain that I've experienced in my life has really hollowed out a well of compassion that not a lot of people can hold space for. And so she helped me to see the true frequency of real love. And I also got to see that we're all receiving the love that we've gotten from our parents, right? That they got from their parents and that they got from the generation before. And while that is so beautiful and full of so much necessary nutrients, so many necessary nutrients, it is still oftentimes injected with fear and with betrayal and with pain and with, condition. And so really until you can open yourself up and start to really receive and deliver and be aware of just the natural toxins that you yourself present to the world, it's going to be hard for you to create a more loving and intentional community. And so I tell you all of this because it also helped me to see my passion is coaching, and that I get to do this in my work, and that there are so many more people out there that are in need of that sort of compassion and space. So that way they can have that safe container to do their own healing work. And that's how the world changes, right? It's just one person at a time, one conversation at a time. So I came back knowing corporate's not for me. It's time for me to jazz things up. It's time for me to go head first into my coaching business. But it took me a couple months to fully integrate. And upon coming home, I also had this sense of I want to do integration work. I want to work with people in this space and help them make sense of this deeply chaotic, confusing set of experiences. Because the real work is not the ceremony. The real work is the ceremony of life. It's the integration that happens afterward. It's okay, I have all these downloads, and now what? How do I fit myself back into the square hole that I've been keeping myself in, or bust right out of it? And but I was I'm not going to do that work until I get permission. I need Madre to tell me that's okay. And so I actually just went back, and in my first ceremony back, she basically was yes, absolutely. I need you to do this work. Yes. And also I need you to write a book. And also it's time to move to Peru. So, so it's been a wild journey for me. My coaching has absolutely changed. The way that I show up has absolutely changed. I you start to see like there's no such thing as coincidence, right? Like it's all these invisible threads that just connect the universe. We're all just like one expanded consciousness, and it's beautiful to be able to be that. And it's also so liberating to not feel like everything that happens is ours to fix or maneuver or manipulate. Like there is this like beautiful symbiotic relationship that we have with the universe and with nature. And the more that we can honor that, and the more that we can like ride the wave rather than trying to swim against it, the more we can follow into our path in a way that actually feels truly fulfilling. But it takes a lot of trust to get there. And in my experience, sitting with ayahuasca, I think exponentially expedited my ability to see that faster than I probably would have on my own. But that was the path that I needed to be on, all in the right time. So
What a journey you have been on, girl. That is so beautiful to hear. I would totally read your book. So please let me know when it comes out. And I had a teacher say at the end of ceremony, when it was done, she would say, the ceremony has just begun. Mm-hmm. And so the ceremony has just begun for our listeners who got to hear your testimony, hear your story, and how you have been how do I want to say this? You've been a heart-centered warrior through action and also through surrender and deep release and trust. And I'm really grateful that the world created you, the universe created you, and the threads were woven for us to get to connect. So thank you so much for your time today, Raychel. I'm feeling like this is starting to be complete. How can people work with you?
Yeah, if people are interested in working with me, they can absolutely follow me on social media, send me a message, or even email me directly. So my website and all of my social media handles is Ray of Sunshine TCC. So that's RAY of Sunshine TCC, as in the conscious community. The whole goal of my pages at some point is to really bring people together, and that's like the medium term phase of everything that is currently being constructed there. So yeah, please follow along. If you like my content, send me a message. I'm so curious to hear how it touches you, or if it helps in any sort of way. And I do actually have a couple openings that are going to be opening up in the next couple weeks. So if you are interested, yes, absolutely would love to hear from you. And this has been such a beautiful conversation. And again, thank you so much for creating this container and doing this powerful work. I have a sense this is going to be the first of many conversations that you and I have over the next period of time. So,
I definitely hope so. And everybody who's listening, I hope you get to connect with this conscious community that Raychel's building. I know that once we see it, I will be there if I can be. So I think that that's so beautiful and special. Thank you all for listening. And we'll chat soon.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode of the Wild Wisdom podcast. Really enjoyed this podcast. Go ahead, like, share, and subscribe to spread this wisdom to other sisters who might need it.